Hey guys, Brews and Bets isn't going to be seen this week as normally scheduled. We had a little bit of issue with our plans this week, so we weren't able to get together for this podcast. So what I'm going to do is basically go through the one bet I made this week. I'll let you know what I'm thinking, and then I'm going to go through some DraftKings stuff. As you know, my name is Steve Ricciardi on Twitter at SHPPirate12, and the issue that we basically had, um, let's put it this way: the quant edge is now going to be done by Tyler, and he has someone else coming in to help him. I'm not going to be working with the quant edge anymore. And again, it's not a bad breakup at all. I have more responsibilities at work, so I'm not going to be able to do the quant edge stuff. So what I'm going to do is probably we'll continue Brews and Bets more or less next week. Me, CG, and Tyler Beard. And then what I'm looking to do is maybe Friday after weigh-ins, maybe I'll just do my own little DraftKings update, every week for you guys, or as often as I can. So this week I'm going to do it obviously right now. I'll do DraftKings, and I will give you the bet that I put in this week. If you want to tell that's up to you. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So screen capture a couple of the things I want to show you. Let me get you there. And right now, what I'm looking at to make a bet is right here. I'm looking at Rosenstruck minus 200. I'm looking to do a two-fighter parlay here with Rosenstruck at minus 200, and I want to parlay him. All right, that's not what I wanted to do there. I wanted to parlay him with Deron Win at minus 260. So right now, I believe I parlayed them and got minus 104 odds. I think the odds have come down on Rosenstruck. Let me just check this out right now. I think the odds have come down on Rosenstruck, though, since weigh-ins. Yeah, it was minus 218, and now it's minus 200. So if you can get it at minus 200, again, I put in my bet on DraftKings, so I just took them both to win. If you wanted to get, a little bit better odds, maybe you can go Rosenstruck by KO TKO. Deron Win, I kind of feel like that's going to finish inside the distance. So if you wanna put that inside the distance, Eric Spicely doesn't have much of a gas tank. I'll break down some of the fights for you right now when I go over DraftKings. But Eric Spicely doesn't have that much of a gas tank himself, so I wouldn't really worry about him getting into the third round and going to decision. So I think Win is going to wind up beating him first or second round. And Win is known as a wrestler, but I think his stand up was pretty good in the tape that I saw. So let's get right over to DraftKings. All right. And I will show you the DraftKings stuff, and I'll go through my lineups and who I'm considering in cash and GPPs. And again, this is for UFC on ESPN plus 12, Moicano versus Korean Zombie. So at this point, Andre Ewell and Anderson Dos Santos is the first fight. Ewell, as you can see there, is 8.3K. Dos Santos is 7.9K. I guess the people that I'm not really interested in playing Ewell at all in cash. And again, Dos Santos is a nice cash play because the odds have flipped on this fight. So if we go over to here, you see Dos Santos is a minus 110. So if you're an odds-based player, then definitely you can take advantage of those odds. I just think that the fight is so close. I think Ewell's gonna present some problems with his length. He's pretty good on his feet, and he can present some problems with his length. I think Dos Santos is not a great striker, but I think what he can do is work his BJJ game if he can get it there. I just don't know if he's going to be able to get it there, which is why I'm not interested in a bet on this, and I'm not really interested to play this much on DraftKings. And again, I'm keeping my DraftKings. I'm not playing much this week at all. One of my favorite fights on this card actually dropped off of this card. I guess it was last night or this morning. And that fight was John Lineker and Rob Font. That was the co-main event. So I'm not a huge fan of this card at all. I think the main event fight is a pretty good fight. But other than, I'm interested to see Brian Barberena. A couple of the other fighters on this card. Aguilar, I'm interested to see him again. I like him a lot. But other than that, there's not many fights that I really want to see here. So I'm not going to play that much in DraftKings. So let's get to this next fight, and that's going to be Deron Win and Eric Spicely. I think Deron Win is GPP and cash viable. Eric Spicely wasn't even in the UFC. He just came in on about 5 days' notice. So I actually have Deron Win in my cash lineup right now. I think he's going to be able to win in the first or second round. I think he's going to be able to knock out Spicely. Spicely's not very good on his feet with his striking. Deron Wynn, although he's a low volume striker, he seems to throw with some pretty good power. And again, that first fight, that was, when was that? I guess that was the card that Oscar De La Hoya put on a few months ago. He fought at 205 pounds. This fight's going to be at 185 pounds. So I think that power will go with him. And again, he's one of those guys that trains with Daniel Cormier over at AKA. And I really like him. I think he can always resort to that wrestling, but I don't think he's going to want to give Spicely a chance to lock in like a guillotine or triangle choke on the ground. So I think he's just going to keep it on his feet. The next fight here is Molly McCann and Ariana Lipsky. Lipsky was training at a Jersey recently. I covered a Ring of Combat event earlier in the month. I guess it was last month. And she was actually at the event. She trains at one of the local gyms. Frank Bonafuente, who was in the main event there, looking to get that UFC call. But Frank was there, and she trains at the same gym as Frank Carnicella, I believe is MMA is the name of the gym. I think the odds are off. I don't know why she was minus 280. I was very surprised she was minus 280. I figured this would be closer to a pick 'em, maybe a little bit on Lipsky, just because she came in with a lot of fanfare. I know she was a champion in her previous organization. I think it was KSW. Molly McCann was a champion in Cage Warriors. So with all that being said, we've seen McCann twice. We've seen Lipsky once. Lipsky got taken down. I don't think that that's going to happen here with McCann. McCann isn't really that kind of a fighter. She wants to keep it on the feet. I think Lipsky does also, which is why I think this is the closer fight. And I'm going to play Molly McCann as a cash punt in my cash lineup. So again, I don't mind playing either one of these girls in GPP, maybe low volume GPP if you're playing a lot of lineups. But in cash, I think we can get some pretty good value on McCann, even if she does lose this fight. But I think it should be a striking based fight, and I don't really see it finishing. This next fight is Alan Crowder and Yarzinho Rosenstruck. And again, I'm going to fade Alan Crowder in all formats, cash, GPP. I don't want to play him at all. I don't think he's very good. If he wins another fight the way that he did, by all means, you're going to beat me. But Rosenstruck is a guy who I like in cash and GPPs. I actually put him in my cash lineup. And the reason I didn't put him in my GPPs is I'm trying to really get up to the top of the board here, and in the one GPP lineup that I'm referring to, that I'm going to share. But that GPP lineup, I didn't put Rosenstruck, although I have no problem playing him. I do think he's going to knock out Alan Crowder in the first or the second round. And again, I saw the odds come down decently. I mentioned that bet at the beginning of the podcast. I was a little surprised that the odds came down. He's minus 200 now on 5 dimes, if you look right here. But he was, when I locked him in, I believe he was minus 220 when I got him in that parlay. So obviously I could have got a better number if I would have waited, but I didn't know that the odds were going to change. I think the reason the odds are changing is because at weigh-ins, I think people saw that Crowder weighed in 10 pounds heavier, and he's a little bit taller than Rosenstruck. But again, Rosenstruck has a lot of power, a very good kickboxer, a lot of experience, over 70 kickboxing fights, and he has a very good record. Alan Crowder, on the other hand, I just don't think he's a very good fighter. I don't think he's going to be able to finish this fight. Again, I could be completely wrong, but I'm going to fade Crowder in this fight. The guy that I put in my GPP lineup was Luis Pena at 9.5K. I think he's going to be a guy that people are going to overlook. Matt Wyman, my issue with him, again, I think he hasn't fought since, I didn't write it down, but I believe he hasn't fought since 2014. And if you go back and watch that tape, it just looks like it's just the MMA, the UFC fights just look different now. There's more athleticism. I think Luis Pena presents that athleticism. He's very long. He's going to be able to strike from a range that I don't know if Wyman's going to be able to handle. So I think that Luis Pena is a great play in GPP and cash. He's very expensive though, but in a GPP format where I'm trying to be contrarian, that's why I plopped him in there. Next fight, Dan Ige and Kevin Aguilar. There's been so much narrative around this fight this week. A lot of that narrative has to do with Dan Ige. He is one of Ari Abdelaziz boys. He's one of like the two or three guys that really work with him a lot. There's been some narrative too. A couple of the MMA journalists that tweet stuff out every once in a while had some kind of a story where Dan Ige was like picking up steroids or something like that from a clinic. Who knows who it was for? Supposedly it wasn't for Ige. As far as I know, he's never failed a test. But you just want to stay clear of that, especially if you're a fighter. So with all that narrative this week, I'm still going with Kevin Aguilar. I think that he was able to stuff the takedowns his last fight against Barzola. And I don't think that Ige is going to really present that much of a takedown threat for Aguilar. And I think if it stays in the feet, I think Aguilar is just that much better of a striker. Aguilar is also a guy who's lost a lot of weight, and to me, that just shows how motivated you are. I heard on another podcast. I listen to a ton of podcasts. I heard on another podcast that he was up at like 300 pounds at one point, and he's down to fighting at 145. He obviously has a ton of power, but I just noticed the discipline to be able to go from 300 pounds to 145 pounds, lose that much weight. Like you got to be very, very disciplined. So I really do like that. Not that Danny Gay isn't, but I think Aguilar is a very, very good fighter. And Tyler, if anybody does follow routinely on Brews and Bets, Tyler's a big fan of anybody from LFA, specifically Kevin Aguilar. He's been right on both of his fights, and I've kind of been wrong. So hopefully that trend, my trend continues. Um, well, if it continued, I guess I would be picking wrong, but I hope Kevin Aguilar is able to win this fight here. And I have him in my cash and GPP lineup, so he's one of the few guys that I have in both. Ashley Yoder, Suri Kondo. Kondo's a fade for me. She's a striker, low volume striker. I'm not really interested in playing her, and I think Yoder is going to be able to get this fight to the ground. And I'm playing her in my GPP lineup because I think if she can get this fight to the ground, lock up a submission, I think again I'm trying to be contrarian here, and at 8.2K, she really fits that bill. She's a nice price. This next fight, if you listen to podcasts, you will hear that everybody is on Alessio De Torico, and I don't really get it, to be honest with you. Not the way that everybody's talking about him. I think that it's more of a hatred for the way that Kevin Holland presents himself in fights. He calls himself a big mouth, loud mouth. Dana White supposedly didn't put him on, give him a contract after Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series because of he was just barking the whole fight, and he probably should have dropped knocked that guy out, and he probably should have had a couple other finishes too. He almost lost that last fight, and it was in Philly. I forget who it was against now. Jaron Merchant, I think it was Mearshart. That was in Philly. I actually covered that event, and Kevin Holland came in and did his interview after and basically said, I apologize to the crowd, but for the most part, if he just wants to hug me the whole time, I can't really strike and try to finish him. So yeah, that did happen, but Kevin Holland has to really chase that finish if he wants it. He lets people hang around. He kind of messes around a little bit too much for my liking. But that being said, I put Kevin Holland in my GPP lineup. Again, I'm trying to be contrarian with this lineup. So I think that Kevin Holland can win via finish. But don't get me wrong. If you want to play the other side of this, if you're playing multiple lineups, Alessio Di Tarico is somebody that you can definitely play. And again, he's a guy who's 12-2, 7.4K, opens up a lot of possibilities, putting his salary into your lineup. Next on the card is Andrea Lee and Montana De La Rosa. I went back and forth in this fight, and I just didn't play it in either my cash or GPP lineup that I put together. And the reason I didn't play it is I don't think Montana De La Rosa is going to be able to get her down and submit her. I think Andrea Lee is just going to be much stronger than her, and 125 pounds. I think her strength is going to be too much for De La Rosa. Now, that being said, Andrea Lee has been taken down by her previous opponents. I just think that she knows that Montana De La Rosa's only path to victory is to get her down on the ground. So I don't think that I think she's going to have better takedown defense in this. And I think if it stays in the feet, I don't think that De La Rosa has anything for Andrea Lee. I think that Andrea Lee is going to be able to use her elbows. He's going to be able to clinch her up. She's going to be able to strike, kick. She's going to do whatever she wants. So I think Andrea Lee is going to beat Montana De La Rosa in a low-scoring Draftkings fight. So if you're playing Draftkings, I think it's going to be low-scoring there. Brian Barberena and Randy Brown. This is a fight that I think finishes. I am concerned with Brian Barberena because he took a pounding in his last fight. If you go back to the fight with Vicente Luque, Barberena basically got finished within seconds of the final bell. And a lot of people after the fight said he could have won that fight. If Vicente Luque doesn't put him down, there's a very good chance Brian Barberena wins that fight. Now he's tough. He can take a pounding, but after taking that pounding, is that gonna take its toll on this fight? So I played Randy Brown in GPP. Again, the contrarian play. He's long, doesn't have a ton of power, but I think that Barberena may be a little diminished. His chin may be a little diminished at this point. But I took a shot at Randy Brown and GPPs. I think that Barberena is going to bring it to him, and Randy Brown's going to be forced to exchange. So it's going to be. I think this fight is going to finish. So I think that you got to play that fight in GPPs, and I think most people will be on Barberena. So I threw Randy Brown. I may be wrong, but I went Randy Brown in my GPP lineup. We're going to skip the John Lineker Rob Font fight only because, for the most part, if you followed the news the last few days, what you notice is that John Lineker, I believe, was the one who pulled out. I'm not sure exactly what went on, but he pulled out, I believe, last night. I saw it this morning, so it was before weigh-ins. But maybe he had complications cutting weight. I'm not really sure. I can look more into that. But everybody else made weight for this card, so that's good. We're at I think there's 12 fights. Where is there? No, there's 11. Let's see. Let's count real quick. 1, 2. Yeah, there were 12. They made Lineker that fight, but there's no number 2. So yeah, I think there's only 11 fights now. So with that being said, we get to the main event: Moicano, Renato Moicano, and the Korean Zombie. So on there, C. Jung at 7.6K. That's the Korean Zombie. Korean Zombie, I put in my cash lineup and GPP lineup. I have him in both lineups. Moicano, I have in my cash lineup. So the cash stack is a viable play here. If I had to pick a method for this fight to finish, it would be Moicano to win by decision or finish late. It would be Korean Zombie to win inside the distance. I think that he has the opportunity, if he can get into range, get into a punching range, I think that he can finish this inside the distance. If Moicano can get into a kicking range, I think that he can, get this fight lasting into the third, fourth round. I really don't think that this fight finishes in rounds 1 or 2. I think we have a better shot of getting into round 3, and I would even say I'm very sure it's gonna get into round 4. So with that being said, you got 5 rounds here in the main event. I think the cash stack is in play. And again, I'm going with Korean Zombie and GPPs only because I think if he wins, it's going to be via the finish. I think that's his path to victory. That's more or less what I'm looking at right now. Again, next week we should be back with our normal Brews and Bets podcast. Hopefully you were able to enjoy this, listen to this. If you have any questions, do let us know. I can read out the winners. Kevin Bianco was the winner of the Eat Clean Bro prize pack, and Michael Hacker is the winner of the UFC 229 program. I didn't send it out yet, but I will send it out soon. All right. Thanks.